Okay, this is what I found out is that there's lots of videos out there for converting PSu power supplies to run as a benchtop unit. The problem is that Compaq power supplies and your older Dale's power supplies are all different, and they run a priority circuit in them, and there's a little different way to wire these up, and I haven't been able to find anything on the web for this, so I've just kind of created my own video and give everybody a tutorial, and hopefully this is useful to a lot of people. Some of the things you're going to need, as you can see here, are your basic wiring tools, screwdrivers, side cutters, wire strippers, wire crimpers. I don't like to solder, so I use a lot of different wire connectors in this process, zip ties to keep all my wires clean, and one other thing you're going to need is a 10 watt 10 ohm resistor. If you've seen some of the videos on how to convert these power supplies, you'll see that you need these to show a load on the system, and I get mine from Radio Shack. They're $1.25 a piece. They come in packs of $2.50 for the pack, so they're fairly cheap. The power supply that I'm going to use is a Compaq one, and I purchased these up off of mpja.com, and they're a Compaq PSu. Series number is the PS2016, and part number on is 270647001. Basic 260 watt power supply. I picked them up for $4 a piece off of mpja, so they're like really cheap, and you'll find that a lot of your Compaq power supplies are cheap because they don't really use them much anymore. Your basic wiring difference is, and if you've seen some of the other videos on how to convert these, the pin connectors are completely different. The Compaqs run a priority circuit, and your standard 24 pin connector, you'll see that there's your orange wires here. There's 3 of them. Those are your 3.3 volts. You'll have your blue, which is -5 volts. All your blacks are common grounds. Your green on pin 14 is your power on wire, and you've got your standard reds, which are 5 volt. Your yellows, which are 12 volt. Basically, it's the same as anything that you wire up in these, and there's lots of videos out there for doing this. The difference in your 20 pin Compaq ones are, you've got 3 brown wires up here, as you can see at the top, instead of the orange. Those are your 3.3 volts. If you can see this, there's a smaller wire right here at pin 2. That's a 3.3 volt remote sensing wire, and that's really important. If you come down to your pin 14, which is your green wire on your standard, it's now a white wire. Your reds are still your 5 volts, and now on your Compaq ones, the orange wires are your 12 volt power supplies, and then you have your purple wire, which is a fan off. Your yellow wire is a -12 volt. Your blue wire is a -5 volt. This green wire right here is your it's a 5 volt auxiliary, and if you look at the board, you can actually read some of this off the board, so that you don't get confused on what it is, and I'll show you how to wire that up. The basic setup on your 20 pin ATX is you simply take your green wire and you wire it to one of your black common wires, and then you put in your 10 watt 10 ohm resistor on your common and your red wire, which is your 5 volt, and that gives you your load. And then you can use all the rest of your 12 volt, 3 volt, 5 volt, depending on what you want to run, as your power wires, and connect that to ground. I basically use mine for Halloween displays, and therefore I run simple wiper motor, so I'll show you what I use for wiring, and we'll go from there. Basically, your first step is you want to open up your power supply, and you take the cover off of it, and you got all these wires that come out. So what I do is I take the wires that I actually need, and I clip them off as close to the power supply as I can. Basically, you're going to need one green or one red and one common power to run your 12 volt or your 10 watt 10 ohm resistor. And then what I do is I'll just run out like one black common out of there, a 3 volt, a 5 volt, and a 12 volt, depending on what I want to run. I like to keep them all out. That way, if I want to change and run something a little different, I can. Basically, on a wiper motor, the voltage that it sees is in relation to the speed that it'll run. So your 3.3 volt will run a slower RPM than your 5 volt or your 12 volt. Depending on what your prop is or what you're trying to run, depends on what you need. Any of the extra wires that you don't need, I clip them off as close to the board down there as I can. Keeps them out of your way, keeps them cleaned up. So basically, on your Compaq power supply, you're going to have your white lead and your green lead. Your green is a 5 volt auxiliary. And what I found is that instead of hooking your power supply on line, which is your white line right here, and this is your power on wire, instead of wiring that to a black common wire, you connect it to that green wire. And as you can see, I just use a standard twist tie connector on there rather than, because I don't like running solder guns or stuff, so I don't use that. That's step one. It's pretty simple. Just connect those two wires together. That's the biggest problem that people have found. They connect their white wire to their black wire, and then they try to fire this up with a load resistor in there, and your Compaq power supplies won't turn on. And that's part of the priority circuit on them, is that white and green wire have to be wired together rather than your power onto your common. Step two is, this is also very important. I couldn't get it to fire on without it. If you look here, there's these two brown wires, and you've got a 3.3 volt wire, which is a thicker wire, and then you've got a smaller brown wire that's a 3.3 volt remote sensing wire. Just go ahead and wire those two together. Basically, it's just showing for the remote sensing, it shows exactly what you need. And like I said, I take that third brown wire that's down in here and I run it right out of the power supply to power up my wiper motors or whatever. Once you got those two wired together, you go in and you put your load sense in here. Now, I just kind of crimp mine all together. You can use heat shrink, whatever you want, and it should wire it all, depending on how clean you want it and stuff like that. But basically, you're going between one of your common black wires and your 5 volt red wire, and just wire it in there. It just shows it the load, and it needs that load to fire up. After you get that done, I kind of clean mine up a little bit, and I put them all in. And as you can see, I've got several different power supplies here that I bought. Like I said, they were $4 a piece, so really cheap for me. And I just kind of wire up my load sense, zip tie it to wherever. You can zip tie it to the case. And as you can see, I don't use the pull connections and stuff, wire them into the box. If you want, you can go right ahead and do that. Same with your power. If you want to go ahead and wire that into a switch, you can wire that into a switch if you want. Basically, that's how I set it up. And then on my cables that I go out to my wire motor, I like to use the pin connectors on it. You can see here, there's one of the 5 volts that ain't plugged into this wiper motor yet. Then I got 3.3 volt, I got 12 volt, and then I got my black. And basically, I put the pin connectors on so that when I wire up my wiper motor, which you can see down here, it's wired up just basically the same way you'd find anything that's wired up to these systems. I do that so that I can run my power supply and put it in a box. Keep it cool, weather tight box, and have it so that the fan will still run and everything. Keep the power supply cool, and then I can run out. I can make up jumper wires and run my power cables out as far as I need for whatever prop I'm running off of it or not. once you get that wired up, you can test it, power it on, plug it into your power into your wall outlet, and should fire up and run really nice. So, you know, mine worked really well. I know this is something that people have been wondering on. A lot of people couldn't figure this out, and I've been to website after website after website that people were really getting frustrated with their Compaq power supplies and not being able to fire them up the same way you do a standard ATX. You know, then you put your cover back on, it's all clean, all nice and neat. These I haven't figured out how to put, you know, some people put an LED sensor into them, and there's other spots you can learn to do that. I don't see the point, because I figure I'm running mine off of timers for Halloween and for different animated props and stuff, and, you know, power on's power on. As soon as that timer turns it all on, you know, everything starts running. So I hope this helped a lot of people. I know I had to back away from this 3 or 4 times when I was trying to wire them up, because I couldn't figure it out and trying to jump the pin connectors and stuff off of them. So I just hope this helped a lot of people.